Hey friends, welcome back to Fun with Azure here, ADF part 2. So let us get right into it. So on the left hand side you see what we did in part 1. Part 1 is actually out on YouTube. If you care to have a look, this is here part 1, Azure ADF part 1. And so what we're going to do today is basically adding on the work that we did last time. So in part 1 on the left hand side, we created a resource group, we created a VNet and a subnet, a data factory, and we did also create a SQL Server destination. This is basically where we kind of store the data to, and we did set up a storage account as well. Right. So let me show you in Azure. Before I do that, let's go to the right hand side here real quick. This is basically the red one here on the right hand side is what we're going to do in that video. So we're going to create a self-hosted integrated runtime VM, SHIR VM. And then we're going to set up Management Studio on that self-hosted runtime to later then be able to access a SQL server, which is on a separate VM, right? And we're going to do that basically to have that environment here build up so that we can basically simulate an on-premise SQL server, right? And Data Factory is later going to connect to this and is pulling data into a storage account and into Azure SQL to eventually share it up to a visualization tool like Power BI. Eventually we're also going to configure private endpoints. Initially we're not, but as we progress through the series, that's all going to be added. Okay, so let's head over to Azure again, and just so you know, I did add a link to the video. Scroll down a little bit here. This actually brings you to a GitHub repository with the script that I've been using last time. The script is here. I'm not using all the pieces here, so you need to go through a little bit and see what's helpful to you if you want to reuse it. But that's kind of where this resource is located. And then let me go to Azure here, resource groups. Let me first show where we basically ended last time. This is kind of the status that we ended last time. So we have a data factory, and we have a SQL Server and the database. We provisioned those. The database actually came through. Last time we didn't see this, but it eventually came through. And then here the storage account, and here the VNet, right? So those artifacts are all in place. So today, what we're gonna add is just basically a VM. We could do this via script as well, like we did the other day, but I'm gonna show you the capability of provisioning this via the GUI. In Azure, we pick our resource group. We have the subscription, of course, and then we go basically setting up the runtime VM, and I call this the SHIR VM. And then we're just looking where we're actually gonna put this in. This is the East US. There's a couple of properties now that we need to go through. So availability options is something that's important when it comes to higher availability levels. For that video, for that demo, this is not yet relevant. We're gonna cover this later. Now here, I definitely do not want to have Ubuntu. I'm gonna go with the 2090 Data Center Edition Gen 2. We don't want to do a spot instance. Size is okay, 16 gigs, and then we have 4 cores. That's okay. And then we want to do a username. This is pretty much whatever you desire to do. I'm gonna use that, and then I'm gonna give it a password, very secure password, of course. Okay, and then this VM, the self-hosted runtime VM, is actually available from a public endpoint. So we're gonna allow the selected port for the RDP, the 3389, Now, keep in mind, this is not a production-like setup, so obviously don't do this in production. But for now, this is okay. Later, we're gonna add this into a Bastion setup, which allows you to basically avoid public endpoints on VMs. All right, so now we have the self-hosted runtime VM. We see we have a public IP. That's all good. We need to change the subnet here to the VM subnet. Okay, we don't want to have this VM in the private endpoint subnet. But other than that, everything looks okay. Let me check this one out down here. The public IP, accelerated networking. That's okay. Load balancing, we don't need load balancing for this one. So next is management. Now, like I said earlier, if it's like production environments here, we would enable monitoring. We would do all of this here. Auto shutdown is also helpful, if you want to make sure that you don't get charged for it. So we could definitely do that. I'm not going to do it here, but it's easy to enable. Just check it and then choose whatever time zone and whatever time you would like. Site recovery, this is another service site recovery service that helps you to replicate the VM into another area. We're not going to do that here, but eventually we're going to spend some time on this. So advanced, same here. You can add extensions that can run and install additional needed software. We don't need that here, but this is all there. User data, host, reservations, we don't have that. And then we could add tags. This is helpful for what environment it is and for cost analysis later. I'm not going to do that here as well, but in a production scenario, you would definitely think about those type of things. So review and create. Let's have a look one more time. East US, self-hosted runtime VM, RDP. That looks all good. We have a managed disk, premium, networking. The important part here is that we are on the VM subnet here. This is there, and you see the IP range of the subnet. Looks all good to me. So since we're good there, I'm gonna provision this. And while this is actually building up, what I'm going to do now is going back real quick to the slide and just talk a little bit through the things that we're gonna do in that video. So now we basically created this VM here on top, right? And you see there's also Ssms. This is basically a SQL Server client tool that allows you to connect to SQL Server. So we're going to install this next once we connected to that VM that we just provisioned. This is going to take a bit, the provisioning, but in the meantime, we can definitely have a look at the Ssms and start where this is located. And that way, once we're connected, we can easily download. So I'm just gonna go to your favorite browser. You can definitely use that one or another one, that's up to you. Then I'm scrolling down, and this is basically the link that you want to go to, Management Studio. And then 1810 seems to be the latest version, so this is where we go. And then it would download. Now I'm downloading it here now. You could download it on your host like I do right now and copy it over, or you could just then basically copy that link, right? And once the VM is up, we're downloading it from the VM, which might be a better option in our situation. That is basically the tool. Like I said, once we here and we have the self-hosted runtime VM set up, we install this. That allows us then to access the SQL Server that we install next time, right? Then we can build up the database, add some sample data, sample database, and then we install the self-hosted runtime on the VM here. That's all next time, and that allows us then to access actually from Data Factory, which is the end goal here. So there's a bit of setup work to be done, but this is definitely fun. So let's see what the VM is doing, and it says here the deployment is complete, which is good. So I click go to the resource, and you see here virtual machine, we see here networking. So this definitely worked. So when I click here on networking on the virtual machine tab, you also see there is a port opened, so which is important because we need to get to this box. When you click on topology like I just did, and we're gonna do this a couple of times as we go through this should actually update to basically our VNet, the subnets, and the VM now, right? So this is what we basically just provisioned here. We have the VNet, that's the VNet that we provisioned last time, and then we have the two subnet with the VM subnet and the private endpoint subnet, which we're currently not using, as you can see. And then we have the the three here. This is basically the NIC for the VM, and then we have the VM itself, the NSG, the network security group, and the public endpoint. Okay, so now let's go back and go into the resource group again and make sure that we connect to the VM. So when I go here, you see there's now quite a bit of stuff in here. So virtual machine, self-hosted runtime VM. And again, we're connecting RDP. We have a public endpoint, not recommended practice, but for that demo, it's okay. But eventually, we have to secure this in a more stronger fashion, obviously. Okay, so I'm gonna choose a different account here, and this is the account that I set up earlier when we logged in, obviously. So I'm connecting, and everything goes well. I'm actually getting right into the VM, and let's open this up. And this is gonna take a minute to organize itself. So here we have the link that I'm then gonna use. I think I already have it copied, but do it again. Okay, so this is coming up. This is good. Click on here, do that. Okay, so the source or server manager is coming up, which is also good. So don't need that. I'm always going to the local server, and I'm going to the enhanced security, and I turn this off for the administrator, which my account is right now. So this is turned off, and now I can actually launch Internet Explorer. Obviously, this is not the proper browser no more. Who uses Internet Explorer these days? But for now, just to download this client tool, this is okay. Let me go here, and then copy this over. So this brings us straight to that site. And obviously there's Edge being offered, and if you like, you can download and install Edge. I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna download this one here, and I'm gonna say save as, and just make sure you download it to a location that you can remember later where you downloaded it to. So I'm gonna do it at desktop and hit save. So this is downloading now, and this doesn't take too long. Once it's downloaded, we can actually start the installation, and pretty straightforward installation. Basically just standard steps, and it has actually completed. So I open this folder. This should bring us to the desktop, and it does. All right, so now we're on the remote box. You can see here, this is my box, and then I'm gonna go in here and start this installation. And this is gonna take a bit till it's up, but I figured it's good to go through those steps just to make sure you really see what I'm doing. Now, this is primarily we install Management Studio and also Azure Data Studio, by the way. This is one install now to verify connectivity, right? This is the main reason. We wouldn't need this to be able to connect from Data Factory, right? So we just install this for the purpose of testing connectivity. There's other tools you could install to do the same thing, but I'm gonna use Management Studio, but Azure Data Studio or SQL CMD, which is also a very popular command line tool, which I usually use, is also possible, right? But let's go with SQL Server Management Studio while this is installing. You can actually check real quick in Azure what's out there. We go back here, we go there. Because it's always, you remember before we started the video, we had like 5 artifacts here, right? And now we have a whole lot more. So there's the Data Factory was there before, the SQL database was there before. Now this is new, the SQL, the virtual machine. Then the public IP address, and obviously this aligns with the visuals on the topology that we looked at earlier. And then here the NSG, the network interface, and we also have a disk. The disk is actually not visible in the network topology, right? We didn't see that one. And then we have a SQL server. This is the path service. Has nothing to do with the VM. And then those two we already had. So we basically have 4 more items here. If I counted correctly, the VM 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually 5 with the disk, right? But when I go to the VM itself, we go to networking and topology one more time. Here you do not see the disk, right? It's only the VM itself, the NSG, and the public IP. So as we move on and add more stuff to it here, you're gonna see obviously another VM under that VM subnet, right? But this is gonna be with a private endpoint only. So then we only gonna connect to that through this VM here, the self-hosted runtime VM. Okay, let me go back and see what's going on the VM. And then this should have been completed now, successfully installed. That's all good. So close. So this is what I basically wanted to accomplish in that video. Let me close this one out or minimize it. And then if we head over to that one and search for SQL Server Management Studio, let me go here. And Data Studio is already here. Then here we have the SQL Server Tools 18. And then normally it's listed somewhere here, and I think it's that one here. And you can see it's coming up. See, 1810. And now it's basically opening that one up. Again, this is for test purposes. For those of you who work with SQL Server, this is pretty trivial stuff. So there's going to be a connection dialog, and we currently do not have yet the SQL Server VM, so that's what we're going to set up in the next video. Okay, so I think this is it for video 2 in the series. We're going to sync up on this next time when we have the SQL VM set up, and then we can actually connect from here to that VM and go from there. Just have a good time. Bye.